Depression sucks. And what's even worse is that it can feel like a vacuum. The thing about depression is that if you do not know how to get out of it, it can get worse and worse over time. I like to tell people that cancer can kind of be like, or depression rather, can be like a cancer. Look, I'm bobbling over my words. And the thing is if you do not get help, just like with cancer, it can get worse. It can consume you. And we have seen, unfortunately, depression claim people's lives through harming themselves, if you know what I mean. So this is why this topic is important. That's why this podcast is something that you need to watch all the way through, because if you're someone that's going through depression, and if you know someone that's going through depression, send them this podcast, because these things I'm going to talk about is going to help them to climb out of that hole, out of that abyss, and become someone that is totally unrecognizable. So that's going to be the goal for today's podcast. Now, the purpose of this show is to show you guys what happens beneath therapy, right? So if you've never been into a therapy session, or maybe you've been someone that's been to therapy but didn't like the experience, I want to show you guys what happens behind the scenes in therapy by giving you guys the same tools, giving you guys the same strategies that I give my members, my clients, when I speak with them. So what I want you guys to do is buckle up, turn your headphones on, and let's get into these points. Because again, my job is to help you guys get through any sort of depression, anxiety, any type of crisis that you may be going through at this time. So what I'm going to talk about in this podcast is what makes depression worse and how to beat it. So what I'm going to do is talk about this first point. And the thing is about depression, unlike other physical ailments, is that depression doesn't have a timeline. Depression doesn't have no, hey, set date, like, hey, once you hit 6 months, it's over, right? So things like a torn ACL or Achilles, right? Those have 6 to 12 month recovery timetables. Or if you have the flu or COVID, that's typically a week, maybe 2 weeks. But with depression, it can feel like there is no end in sight. And what that does is it robs you of any type of hope that you could have when it comes to getting out of this. And that makes it a lot worse, right? You feel like there is no end. Now, there's a good chance that you may have gone through depression all of your life, right? Or maybe it's been something for the last few years, few months, and you're just asking yourself, when will it be over? And what I want to do is I want to help you guys, because the last 30 days, the last month, last year, there have been times where you weren't depressed. There have been moments, no matter how small they were, that you may have felt joy, happiness, peace. But because depression can be so overwhelming, those times, those moments can be swallowed up. And what I want to do is I want to help you guys in the best way I can to overcome this feeling that depression is long lasting, you're never going to get out of it. And what I want to do, the best thing that you can do, is actually shrink the time frame that you're looking at your depression through. What I want you guys to do is ask yourself, in this next minute, this next hour, maybe even this next day, can I experience other emotions other than depression? And there's a good chance you will, but if you're not attuned to it, if you don't have that level of awareness, you're going to miss it and only see all the depression and the negative thoughts that you have been for the past few months or few years. So in this first point, what I want you guys to do is to shrink the time frame that you're looking at depression through. When you do this, you start to see that there's more to your life now than just the depression that you're feeling. And with that, I want to go into the second point. So the thing about depression is that, man, it can make you feel like you're the only one in the world going through this. It can make it feel like everybody has their life figured out. And what's worse is when you get on social media in the midst of a depression episode, you start to see all the good things that are happening to other people. And you start to ask, man, God, are you mad with me? Or if you're into the universe, like the universe is out to get me. And that's not the case. The thing is that on Instagram, social media, it's like being in the Matrix, right? Like no one is sharing their whole entire lives. People are showing you a curated version of it that they think that you will like. And I mean that literally, right? Like you will like this and they'll click the like button, right? But that's not reality, right? And what I want you guys to do in this part of your life to help to make depression not feel like, everybody else has their life together and you're the only one suffering. I need you, I'm begging you to reach out to other people. And it doesn't matter where they're at in their life, right? Whether they're going through depression or not. I want you to reach out to other people and be vulnerable, be open about what it is that you're struggling with. And the reason why is because they're going to take time to normalize everything that you're going through. And chances are they've been through it themselves. There's a lot of studies out there that show that 20% of people, so 1 in 5 of people will go through at least one depressive episode throughout their life. And if you know anything about grief, something that's going to touch everybody in this world, I feel pretty confident saying that everyone will go through some form of deep, deep sadness, and it may be to the point where they do feel depressed. So everyone knows what this feels like. And by you opening up and being vulnerable, it gives you a chance to now see that you're not the only one, that God or the universe is not picking on you as if you did something wrong. Now, if you said, Coach, right, and I'm speaking as if you're one of my clients, if you said, Coach, I don't want to do that. I don't know anyone that I can trust. I don't have anyone that I can talk to. Then I'll tell you this. There are many great platforms, right? Those on Facebook. I myself, I have a community that I'm a part of, right, that I run. These communities have people that are struggling with depression that you can speak to, and you can speak to them anonymously. And this will allow you to see that, again, you're not the only one going through this. And the beautiful thing about doing this is that these people will come to your rescue. They will normalize the things that you've talked about, gone through, seen. But if you never open that door, you'll always feel trapped by your depression. So what I want you guys to do is to reach out to someone. And this is going to help you to feel like, hey, you're not the only one going through this. Because again, that's what makes your depression a lot worse. Now, this final point that I want to make is the granddaddy of them all, right? This is like the big monster that's in the closet that takes depression and it puts it on an entirely different scale. So earlier this week, I was talking to a client and we're talking about habits. Now, if you know anything about habits, what's the most important thing is to look at the identity. So if you ever looked at, there's a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. He talks about when you're looking at starting a new habit, you want to focus on the identity first, right? Like, what is your why? Who's your identity? Who are you going to become as a result of this habit? So that's the first thing that we want to focus on. Once you focus on your identity, this will then help you define what is the process, what are the actions that you're going to take in order to reach this new goal. Now, once you do that, right, so we focus on the identity, we focus on our process, the third and final part is the results, it's the outcome. And what's beautiful about this is that if you focus on steps 1 and 2, your identity and your process, the outcome will fall in your favor. It's not something that you have to focus on because you're doing all the right things. So how does this work? How does this even hurt when it comes to depression? Well, when your depression, and this is the third point, when your depression goes from a feeling to a part of your identity, right? And I will even say your entire identity, you then start to do the actions of what a depressed person would do, right? So again, your identity determines your actions and your actions determines your outcome. So if your identity is depression and your actions are depressive, you're going to get depressive outcomes. This may look like self-sabotage. When this happens, it feels like there's nothing that you can do because this is who you are, this is who you've always been, and this is who you will always be. And that makes depression the granddaddy of them all when it comes to all these things that I'm speaking of. So how do you break free from this? Well, I would challenge you to do 2 things. First, I want you to acknowledge your depression, right? Say that this is the feelings of depression rather than saying I am depressed. Because when you literally say, I am depressed, you can no longer be anything else. That's why when you introduce yourself, you always say, hello, I am Coach Wells or I am John Doe. You never want to start to use words like I am and then you insert a feeling, especially a feeling like depression or anxiety. So that's going to be the first step. Acknowledge it and acknowledge it as a feeling. The next thing you can do, and I love this. This is coming from the IFS framework that I use, so internal family systems. I want you guys to write to your depression as if it's a person. So if depression was sitting at you at the dinner table and it was asking you all the things that they're afraid of, right? What would you say, right? And I'll even flip that question around. Like if you had to ask depression, what are you afraid of? Or what is it that you need? What would your depression say? And once it gives you those answers, it's up to you to now give them those responses, to give them the answers that they're looking for. So if your depression says that they're afraid that if they stepped out again, right? So let's talk about relationships. If your depression says, if I step out and try to love again, I'm going to be heartbroken. I would ask you, how can you give them, so depression, the confidence that they need that even if they get heartbroken again, that you'll be there for them and that you'll be able to find other people to come and support them. These are the questions that we want to start to ask. Once you do this, depression now has its own seat at the table rather than it just being you. This is how you differentiate yourself from feelings. And I can even say the same thing with thoughts as well. So with that being said, I want to talk about again these 3 points. I just want to summarize. what makes depression worse, and how do you get out of that? So the first point that I made is that it can feel like there's no end in sight. Like I said, with ACLs, the flu, COVID, one would even say with certain forms of cancer, these all have timelines. A doctor, he'll say, hey, it looks like you'll be in the hospital or radiation for 5 months, 6 months, whatever it is. And after that, you're good, right? There's some light at the end of the tunnel. What I want you guys to do is to shrink the timeline that you're looking at depression through. Just ask yourself, in this next month, next day, next hour, next moment, can I feel any other emotions other than depression? Is there anything else that's there for me? Can I do things that depression normally would stop me from doing? The second point that I made is that it can feel like everyone has everything together except you. And what I want you to do is step off of the social media sites and start having real conversations with real people. Now, I did say that Facebook communities, right? Those are great places to go. So if you do stay on Facebook or social media, it's better that you go into these specific places where depressed people have spoken. When you do that, you can see that you're not the only one. And then the third point that I made is that the worst part about depression is when it goes from being a feeling to being a part of your identity, or again, your entire identity. And what I want you guys to do is, one, write or speak to your depression as if it's a person, and two, continue to acknowledge that this is a feeling rather than it being you. So my name is Coach Wells, and again, this podcast, it's a good chance it's for you, and there's even a better chance that this podcast is for someone that you love. So make sure you hit the share button and send this to someone that you know. All right, guys, I'll see you later.